There is a decision most people make before they turn 30 that ends up costing them more than college, more than their wedding, and sometimes even more than their first house. And the strange part is, almost no one remembers making it. If you ask someone what the most expensive decision of their life was, they'll probably say college, or getting married, or having kids. But those are the obvious choices. They come with paperwork, long conversations, and a whole lot of anxiety. The decision I'm talking about feels small when you make it. It can even feel responsible, mature, or smart. It's the moment you decide what kind of life you think you're supposed to live, long before your income, your career, or your real priorities have fully settled in. And for most people, that single decision quietly locks in the rest of their financial life. We're all taught to fear the big, obvious choices. Pick the wrong major and you're doomed. Marry the wrong person and your life is over. Have kids too early and you'll never recover financially. But here's the thing about those decisions, at least they come with awareness. People prepare for them. They hesitate. They ask for advice. The most expensive decision, however, doesn't feel dramatic at all. It happens slowly through a series of small upgrades that all feel perfectly reasonable on their own. A slightly better car, a nicer apartment, a few monthly payments that don't seem like a big deal. Nothing feels reckless. It just feels like you're making progress. So what is it? The most expensive decision people make before age 30 is choosing a lifestyle their future income has to serve. Once that happens, everything else has to bend around it. Your job choices, your stress level, your tolerance for risk. You stop asking yourself, what do I really want to build with my life? And instead, you start asking, how do I keep all of this stuff afloat? And the scariest part is, no one ever frames it that way. They don't say, I'm locking myself into a decade of financial pressure. They just say, I can afford the payment. That one simple sentence quietly decides the next 10 years of your life. This whole process usually sneaks up on you right after you land your first real job. You finally have a steady paycheck. You're independent. You want your life to reflect that newfound success. So you upgrade the car because, hey, you deserve something reliable. You move into a nicer place because you're not a student anymore. You stop thinking in terms of total cost and start thinking in monthly numbers. $200 here, $400 there, $800 for the car. Individually, none of it feels dangerous. But what you're really doing is turning temporary income into permanent obligations. And in your 20s, income feels stable until it isn't. Jobs change, industries shift, burnout happens. Life happens. But those monthly payments? They don't care. For most people, the anchor that drags everything else down is transportation. Cars are marketed to us as milestones. They're proof that you're doing well, proof that you're a responsible adult. But a car payment isn't just a bill, it's a constraint. It limits where you can work, how much risk you can take, and how long you could survive without an income. And once that payment is normalized in your budget, it becomes the baseline for every future decision. You stop asking, could I live cheaper to free up some cash? And instead, you ask, how do I earn more money so this payment hurts less? That's a trap. The true cost of this decision doesn't even show up right away. It shows up in your 30s. It hits you when you suddenly want flexibility but realize you traded it away years ago for a nicer car or a bigger apartment. It's when a better job opportunity comes along that requires a temporary pay cut before a big payoff, and you realize you can't afford the dip. It's when the idea of a career change sounds exciting but the reality of your bills makes it terrifying. It's when a great opportunity appears and you realize you need certainty far more than you need growth. This is when people start saying things like, I'd love to do that, but I have too many bills. Or, I just can't take that risk right now. Or the classic, maybe later. And later often never comes. Not because they're lazy, but because their lifestyle made the decision for them a decade earlier. Here's what rarely gets talked about. It's not just what that lifestyle costs you in dollars. It's what it costs you in options. The option to move to a new city for a dream job. The option to quit a toxic workplace. The option to just say no to things that don't align with your goals. Optionality, the freedom to choose, is incredibly valuable and incredibly fragile. And once it's gone, getting it back can take years of hard work. Almost no one looks back at their life and says, man, I really wish I'd bought a nicer car when I was 25. Instead, they say things like, I wish I'd had more breathing room, or I wish I'd stayed flexible for longer, or I wish I hadn't locked myself. into so many payments so early. They don't regret enjoying their life. They regret committing to a certain standard of living far too soon. Ultimately, this isn't about deprivation or living like a monk, it's about timing. The most valuable asset you have in your 20s isn't money, it's flexibility. It's the freedom to pivot, to explore, and to build a life on your own terms. And the tragedy is how often people trade that priceless flexibility for things that feel impressive in the moment but become invisible and burdensome later on. The most expensive decision you'll ever make isn't the one that costs the most upfront. It's the one that quietly decides what your future is allowed to look like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.